off, but the idea really behind it, so we have actually she's not new, she's been here almost a year now. Carol Klimas is our VP of marketing. She works out of our office in Phoenix. And she came in and, I'm sure, I don't know if anybody has any logo stuff on right now, but logo's very harsh, fire engine red, black, bold, brick letters. So, her idea was, we're in pediatrics. We work with pediatric patients, pediatric home health care, soften it up a little bit. So it went from like fire engine red to watermelon. And it went from black to blue. So as you guys are seeing more of our stuff coming out, you're gonna probably start noticing more of the updated logo. She does a much better job than I could of explaining this whole thing next to the MGA, so I'm not even gonna try. But there is a whole idea behind the way the logo has changed. And if you want to go to the next slide, Tyler. There is some info here, and the second part of this is our website. Is going to be updated as well. So we're hoping probably within the next few months we're going to be rolling out our new website. One of the biggest things in regards to our website that has changed is we're not going to be using those stock images that you probably see every other healthcare company use. We're going to be using real photos of our real patients. So this is actually the son of one of our employees in Phoenix. So as you notice, the change in the brand and the change in the website, you're going to see just more things like that, more specific, more things that are local here to Colorado, to our market, to MGA. Is there a next slide? Yeah. So this is your therapy team. So I'm sure most of you know everybody on this team. One person that I'm sure you'll see that isn't on here is Matt. What happened to Matt? He's still here. He's just moving into a different role. So Matt's just recently got promoted to our Director of Operations here in Colorado Springs. So with that being said, his role as Operations Manager opened up. And I don't think there's anybody that's more deserving than that, and I'm sure you all would agree, Chelsea Davis. So give her a round of applause. Congrats, Chelsea. So with that being said, I don't know if there's anybody else you want to introduce that maybe the team may not know, or if you want to move on to
Yeah,
the
I'll
next
just
piece.
go through the list. I'm sure you guys all know Ashley. You want to stand up? She's our physical therapy supervisor. And then Liz, occupational therapy supervisor. Andrea Skoog, aka Skoog, speech therapy. Jenny, JMO. Tyler, our senior recruiter.
Hello.
Kelly.
Hello, beauties.
Was expecting a cartwheel.
I will do a cartwheel later for sure.
Okay, good. And then Anna, you guys will notice she had a name change. I sent out an email yesterday, so it's still same Anna, just a new name. And then we will kick it off with Skoog. So you guys have a whole packet of information. We won't go through all of it today, but definitely review it. There's some good info in there. Please feel free to ask any questions throughout the in-service, and we will play some games here in a minute.
Yeah, thanks, Chelsea. So I get to go over the research process. Most of you have been here a little bit, so you're pretty familiar with the research process. At some of our other sessions, we've had lots of newer therapists or therapists that just kind of needed to review what our certification window looks like and how that looks in can time now. It's been a big change for everyone. You used to get that email at the beginning of every month. That doesn't happen anymore. And so I wanted to review all of the basics of the recertification process, and then play a little game with you. So there's only like 6 of you, so I'm gonna need all of your participation this morning. I did hit the light and a human yesterday, and I promise I will try not to hit you with the candy later. So basics are, it's a 5-day window. It's days 56 to 60 of your certification period. And that recertification needs to happen during that window. That's a regulation that doesn't come from MGA. Sometimes our families have a hard time with that, especially if they're a once-a-week family that's only seen on Mondays and their recert window opens on Wednesdays. So try to have that conversation with them that, we're a home health care company, we're not a clinic or a school, we have different regulations, so that every 60 days I might have to come on a different day. If that doesn't work, the family's on vacation, the kid's sick, you're sick, we don't want you giving germs to kids, we don't want kids giving germs to you. That's a reason to reschedule and do an early recert. We never want to do a late recert. That's going to result in discharge, and I'll talk to you about that a little bit more. But as far as early recerts go, we want to really continue to have a paper trail following all of those early recerts so that we can make sure we're contacting the physician and planning and plotting your follow-up assessment. So we're asking for those requests in writing with Chelsea, Tyler, and your clinical supervisor. The only reason we ask for all 3 people is because sometimes Tyler or Chelsea or your clinical supervisor's out of the office, and the other 2 people are there to help make sure that the things still get done in time, that your schedule's put in so you can go do that early research when you're supposed to, that things move seamlessly. And we're continuing to improve with this process as well. So form that plan over writing, and then that visit will be scheduled for you, and at that time they will also schedule the follow-up assessment in your next certification period. It's important to note that when that next follow-up assessment gets scheduled, we have no way to track if you mark that as a missed visit. So if you are gone the week that your follow-up assessment is scheduled, let us know and we'll switch it out so you can mark a regular visit as missed and still do your follow-up assessment that next week. We can't miss that follow-up assessment because the regulation is that even if we do our research early, we do an evaluation every 60 days. So day 62 or 3 isn't okay. We have to have that follow-up assessment to show that we're doing our part in making sure we're assessing the kid every 60 days. Has anyone done a follow-up assessment yet? Raise your hand. Yeah, so we got a couple of you. They're a lot different than your regular assessment because they're across disciplines. So they're speech, OT, PT, nursing, CNA. They all have the same document for follow-up assessments. So you only have to fill out what's appropriate to your discipline. If you're a PT, then it might be more appropriate for you to fill out some of the motor sections. If you're a speech, it might not be appropriate for you to fill out much unless you're doing feeding, maybe the GI section. QA's been instructed to be flexible with that document. And if you're having trouble getting that through and submitted, let us know and we'll communicate with you and with them and keep working on it. The follow-up assessments, we're trying to really improve our success and compliance with regulations in this process. And so if you need any support with this stuff, that's what all of your clinical supervisors and the team is here to help you with.
So Andrew, you're saying that, because I haven't done that and I haven't seen this, or is this in addition to when you do a reeval, or is this when you miss a reeval? What is this?
Yeah, so if you do a research early, so say you do your research on day 53 instead of 56 to 60, okay, so your next research isn't for 64 days, which makes us out of compliance with having an evaluation every 60 days. So we're gonna plot that visit for you somewhere in the middle on one of your scheduled days, and then you'll complete that assessment. It is billable. It is in place of a daily visit note.
So do you guys automatically do that, or do we have to tell you?
That is supposed to happen internally, that follow-up assessment placement. If you're getting towards the end of your cert period and you didn't see it, helping us out is definitely helpful. It's really difficult for us to track those follow-up assessments, which is why if you miss one, we'd always benefit from your communication with that. But our goal is to improve this process continually and keep making sure that we're complying with those regulations. And like I said, the follow-up assessment is different. And it does have a room for you to discuss advancement towards goals. If you feel like you need to make a care plan change order mid-cert, that's when you could do that if you had to do a follow-up assessment. You can't copy stuff from your previous research. It's a totally different assessment. But it's pretty basic. It's not as thorough as our assessments and research, and so you can do what you can with it, and it should not take much longer than your daily visit note. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm not sure if you mentioned it, but you try to schedule those 30 days after your early research. So be looking for it about 30 days after. I don't see it.
Yeah.
Mentioned.
Yep. Yeah. So that's kind of the basics. Does anyone else have questions about those early research? Or go ahead, Rebecca.
You were excited over my question.
I'm excited for questions.
So does it have to be so it does not have to be done the very first visit?
After. No.
Just within the 30 days?
Right.
Okay.
Yep, because that regulation is just that we're completing an assessment every 60 days.
Okay.
So reasonably, I mean, you could count it out and do it towards the end, but our goal is not to do that because we don't want you to miss that one.
So you said the follow-up assessment is in place of that daily note?
Yes, and it is billable. So I did have a therapist who thought it wasn't billable and kept moving it back. She thought she was going to get paid for her visits. And so that's not what we want you to do at all. It is totally billable. It is in place of your daily. Yeah. But if you miss that day because of whatever reason, we need to move that one. You can't make that a missed visit. So that's the trick with that. It's kind of a little finicky. But I appreciate everybody trying to help us out with kind of getting our stuff in order here too. So now we get to play a little game. Do-do-do-do. You all got a calendar for December 2018. And so we're gonna play like Research Jeopardy. I'm gonna ask you some questions about research, and you can raise your hand, and if you get it right, you get a piece of candy. I will try not to hit you in the face. So the first one is, name a place where you can find the certification dates for your client. Anybody? Rebecca?
Whenever you're confirming your schedule, it has their,
Episode.
yeah.
On the,
episode.
yeah, good job. That's the first time I've heard that one. Very good. I like it. So when you're confirming your visits, you can see it right there on the far right side under episode, right?
Yeah, actually, like by their name, like
Oh.
it's like the second or third
Third
column.
box.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, good. Who else has got one? Where can you find cert dates?
On the client list,
On the client list, in tabs.
in the tabs.
Yeah, in the profile tab, or there's another tab that has it always. Anybody got it? It's got a nice calendar on it. Anybody know what tab I'm talking about? This is my favorite tab. Episode tab. Hey.
Great one.
That was, yes.
Good job.
So the episode tab I really like because it grays out your certification period, and then it'll show you specifically, like, if it's after that date, it's too late. Go ahead.
Is it on every daily note?
Every daily note has your certification period. All right, there's one more really good one that I like that people don't always think of. Anybody else got a guess?
Sometimes when I'm not sure and I'm doing something else, if you put on your schedule for that patient, it has like all your visits listed, and then the schedule is always like that cert period on that date.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like it. I like it. The last other place that I think of is the research. So when you're there for your research, your next certification period pops up. And so you can have that conversation 60 days ahead of time, like, oh, it's November 1st. Your next research is January 1st. Like, that's over the holiday. Let's talk about it. So that's totally why I gave you this December 2018 calendar. We also printed off research that are happening over Thanksgiving week. So if anybody has one scheduled Monday through Saturday of Thanksgiving, we printed it off ahead of time for you so you can make a plan. Those that I printed are only pediatric kiddos. I could not figure out how to print it for anybody over the age of 18. So if I give you a list and it doesn't have one of your 18 and up kids, it's because I couldn't figure out how to run that report.
Where did you print that?
Your lead has it. So if you have one, you'll get a slip.
Okay.
I have yours, Rebecca. I only have one. So we printed those for Thanksgiving, but then I also kind of wanted to help cue you guys to make a plan for Christmas, because Christmas is definitely the bigger one, especially because Christmas Eve is a Monday, Christmas Day is a Tuesday. So you're essentially, most people are going to want to be off the 22nd through the 25th, regardless. So that's really something to start thinking about and planning. Those kiddos would have recerted like last week. So if you look at your schedule from last week and who you all recerted last week, that's going to be your same kids. I have had a couple of therapists already make a plan for Christmas, and I really, really appreciate those emails and that like communication. So thanks for listening to the whole research shtick. Does anyone have any other questions about research? The other thing I want to review is if you plan your research for that last day, day 60, and kiddo's sick, you're sick, whatever happens, doctor's appointment, we're going to have to discharge and get new orders. Because it's a regulation-based discharge, it's a discharge because we're not meeting regulations. I have people write something along those lines in the discharge summary, that we're going to obtain new orders, that we're not discharging due to progress or anything like that. We're only discharging for, compliance regulation reasons. And then if you have that situation happen, some of our physicians are great about turning around and getting us those new orders, and some aren't. And so if you have have the communication going, we'll let you know or ask, like, is this a physician that turns around quick, or should I talk to family about a longer turnaround time? And then if they're frustrated, we'd love to talk to them too from the office, so that it gives us the opportunity to make sure that we're letting them know that it's not all on you guys, because you guys don't have any control over that, and that we're doing our part to make sure that we're getting the orders processed as quick as possible. So those kiddos that don't get that recert met, we do have to discharge and do a new admission for. So that's research. Any more questions?
No, you have more questions.
Oh yeah, from the game. I didn't even finish them all. Good, get your board back out. I got so excited. Okay. They get better. Okay, if the kiddo's cert period ends December 13th, when does their window open? Kathy, 8. Try again. It's okay, try it again, Kathy, you got it. 9. Yes. Yeah. All right, we got a few more. Research period ends the 21st. When does their window open? Yeah, here you go. Oh, yeah. Okay, here's a trick one. Ready? Their next certification period begins December 25th. When does their window open?
One before?
Their next cert period begins December 25th. So when does their recert open?
20.
20th. Yeah, Kitty.
I have no.
Here you go. I'm getting better at tossing. It's motivating. Okay, certification period ends December 29th. When does their window open? Yeah, there you go. All right, last one. This is a trick one too. So say the kiddos day 56 to 60 is the 23rd through the 27th. What would be a day you would have to request an early recert for?
You said that.
So their cert period, the recert window, is open the 23rd through the 27th. When would you have to ask for an early recert?
Name a day. Like the 22nd?
Yeah, good job. Anybody else? Sorry.
Oh, that was weird.
Another day where you would have to ask for.
Before?
Any day before.
Yeah, any day before. Yeah, 21, 20, 19. You got one? Totally giving away all of Jenny's kids' candy from Halloween.
Are there limits to that? Like,
We did talk about some limits with Chelsea.
So, if the family's going out of town, we can do it up to 3 weeks early, but that's case by case, and we can talk about it with, team.
Needs to be like a very extraneous circumstance when that happens. More reasonable is like more like 2 to 3. It's usually our anything more than 3 we start to get a little so. Okay, so research's over. Yay, we did it. Okay, next one is discharge. That's the other thing we're gonna go over. I just wanted to review. Oh, Miss Research, we talked about all this. Discharges. Thanks, Coach. So there's a few black and white reasons why we might do a discharge, aside from the one that we just talked about where we haven't met our regulations and so we have to discharge a new admit. These are like we're discharging and no longer providing service reasons. So one of them is goals met. If you ever meet all of your goals, the family's satisfied with the kiddo's performance, they're graduating, that's an amazing thing to celebrate, but we do also have to do that discharge paperwork too. And then loss of payer source. So if the insurance changes or they're no longer covered, then that's a time when they have the right to be discharged so that they don't have to be charged for services. And if a patient refuses services or the family requests to discharge, that's an appropriate time for a discharge. If their acuity is too high, this usually is more pertinent to nursing or CNA, like if they need more services than we can provide in the home. Most of our kids that get referrals for therapy don't usually have that happen unless there's an accident or trauma or something like that. And then unfortunately, if a patient passes, it is a very emotional time for you as a therapist and for the family, but we do have to make sure that we're also following our guidelines and getting that discharge paperwork done as well. And then if the agency closes, which hopefully none of that will ever happen to us. Love MGA, whoop.
Yeah.
So all discharges, again, should be communicated in advance with your clinical supervisor in order to start putting like the cart in place, like crazy stuff happening, last minute stuff. We want to make a plan with you. There's some things that we have to do. We have to make sure that your documentation is supporting a reason for discharge. So if the kiddo's meeting their goals, like does your documentation show that? And then if any of the other issues are happening where the family's requesting, how are you documenting your education piece about where the kid's at and what you're recommending? All of those things we want to make sure that we see ahead of time. We also have to contact the physician and let them know that we're going to be discharging and why. So appropriate timeline on this is usually at least like 2 weeks out for us to start talking about when a discharge is going to happen. These are like the black and white reasons for discharges, and then there's like the gray area. So a lot of us have discharges for other reasons. For example, the kiddo's not making great attendance, and you're done. Like, you're tired of showing up and getting no-showed. Well, if you haven't talked to your clinical supervisor about that, we don't know necessarily. And so we haven't formulated a plan or tried to call the family from the office to get them to be a little bit more compliant. We want to make sure we're doing everything we can to serve that family, and let the physician know if maybe the physician can call and kind of say, hey, you know, I referred you for these services, you're not complying, or in a friendlier manner, but we want to do what we can. If you're servicing a kiddo and they move part of towns, that's another reason, and we just need you to bear with us so that we can make sure we get them restaffed appropriately. We have a lot of great staff in different areas now, so you might not even know that we have someone available to take that kid unless you make that communication with us. Does anyone have questions about when a discharge needs to happen?
I have a question about, if you can't do it, the cert, when it's supposed to be done,
Yeah.
and the window passes, like when I was out of town.
Yeah.
I had to discharge, I put loss of payer on there because it was an insurance problem, because it didn't get done, they didn't have funding because it didn't get done. But Ash, what did I have to write? I can't
So
remember.
that's not a loss of payer, that's administrative,
Somebody could.
because we didn't complete a recert prior to the cert period.
Okay, so but what do I put in,
Other administrative,
administrative?
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah.
I couldn't remember what, so next time.
Yep, and you can write in there if you're doing that one like that you're gonna seek new orders if that's the case.
Yeah, I put that in there, I just
Yeah.
didn't know
Know
what to
what-
put.
how to put it in the
So
box.
just put administrative problem, or just administrative, or,
administrative, or
okay. Okay. And then my other question is when that happens, why could we not see all our other OT stuff that was there before?
we have to change the admin number. So along the top of the screen in CanShine, it'll say admit, and if you've discharged and readmitted one time, it'll say admit 2 dash a number.
So you can
You
still go
drop
back
it
and
down.
see it, you just can't
Change
copy
it
it forward
to
into your
number
new
1
business.
dash something. It's
Okay,
just a drop down menu. You change it to admin number 1, it'll take you to all of that episode.
so it is there somewhere, I just gotta find it?
Yep,
Okay.
we can look at one of your
Call
kids.
Yeah, we can show you, I can show
When
you.
you're in Australia, I'll be like, oh.
Yeah, so,
Okay.
and those are great questions, because that's definitely helpful. That admit number, you can change that and then see your previous information.
And
if
it's
you-
at the top, right?
Yeah, it's along the top, it's white drop-down buttons. There's one for the episode, it's like where the client name is, and then there's one for the episode or certification
Yeah.
period. And then the admit one is right in the middle of there.
So I go to the
If
admin
you
one?
use that episode tab, you will see it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have your tablet with you?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can look at it after.
Okay.
Does anyone else have questions about discharges? The reason why we also wanted to review discharges today, is because we're changing the way that you guys add them if necessary. So sometimes you do a discharge and it's not on a visit. If we assign the discharge to you, it's impossible to mark that button, visit not made. And so we were trying to find a way for you guys to be able to add that assessment as a visit not made, so that you can do the paperwork afterward if you didn't have it planned ahead of time and it wasn't done with a visit. That was like a lot of word jumbo. So I'm gonna walk through the process with you. If you are discharging a kiddo and you're not doing it at a visit, this is how that process would happen. If you're doing it at a visit, you've communicated, it was planned and scheduled on your schedule, you're fine because you're gonna mark the time you were there. This is for those discharges that we're not doing associated with a visit. So right now, if you're in your assessments tab where it has a list of all of your assessments, then over on the right hand side, there's going to be an add assessment button. They're calling a discharge an assessment. So you're going to click add an assessment, and then, thanks coach, this will pop up, and this should look familiar. This is a lot like your start of care or research tab when you're doing those initial assessments. The only thing that's different is we're going to mark this discharge from agency. And you're going to choose the date of your discharge. So say, it wasn't a day of a visit when the decision was finalized that you were discharging, you can use that other date. Like, I wasn't out with Joe this day, but mom confirmed that she's done with our services on this day. So that's our discharge day. So you can mark that right here on the assessment. It will show you the date of your last visit if it's not associated with a visit. So it'll let you know the last day you were in the home if that's the date you're trying to use. And then down here is where you mark whether the visit was made or not made. If you're marking not visited, it will gray out the dates and times so that you can't put anything in there. It's a non-billable assessment either way, so this doesn't impact that aspect of the discharge. If you're doing a discharge at a visit, you will have 2 notes that day, your regular visit note and your discharge assessment. So then once you select this, the form is the same as the discharge assessment that you've seen before. Who's done a discharge so far in Can Time? So most of you are pretty familiar with the form. And so this is just a little bit of a different way to access that form, and it makes us, not have to put that you were there with the kid, because you weren't actually there when you discharged sometimes.
So as
Go
far as
ahead.
adding the discharge, we can do that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I missed that.
Yep, so you go back. There we go, thanks, Coach. So if under the assessments tab for your client, so if when you're in assessments, under your client list, you have all of your previous assessments for that kid right here. It'll have every recert, your start of care,
Okay.
and then over here, there's going to be an add assessment button for you to click, and then you can choose discharge from that list.
But it's not there yet.
It is not there yet. I believe that they were trying to make sure that you guys had the right role in order to access the information you needed on a Can Time side of things. It should be there by the end of this week. That is our goal. So that is, if we need to send out another communication because it's not happened yet, then we'll let you know if you have a discharge that you're planning to do.
So, I'm sorry, I missed this. Are you guys, if it's a discharge that you guys already know that are coming up, well,
And you're doing it with a visit, we will schedule it for you
okay, so.
with that visit.
Okay, so we don't have to do it.
Right, you don't have to do any of this unless it's not with a visit.
Okay.
Because if we assign it to you and it's not with a visit, we can't make it a not visited discharge. It's can't.
But we need to go in and schedule, find it and add it ourselves
Yep.
if it's fun.
If it's not on a day that you did the visit and it wasn't there for you.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. So the other thing we really want to keep in mind is that one of the regulations for discharges is that the physician has their hands on it in 5 days. And so QA has been notified to prioritize discharges. And so you guys get 48 hours regardless to complete that documentation. That requirement will not change. But we're going to ask that QA is pretty speedy about making the corrections that are needed for those. And it'd be great if you could watch for those corrections if they do pop up, so that we can get that sent to the physician as quick as possible to meet that 5-day regulation. Does anyone have any questions about when, if, how discharges? Random questions? Feeling good? That's it. That's all I got. Next person.
I did a quick one. Okay, care coordination. We have a statement up here. It is from the Agency of Healthcare Research and Quality, DHHS. Care coordination involves deliberately organizing patient care activities and sharing information among all participants concerned with the patient's care to achieve safer and more effective care. I think like the biggest part to these takeaway is sharing information all participants, and then in order to achieve safer and more effective care for that patient. This is a really good website. It has a lot of information about coordination of care, the purpose, how to do it, suggestions, what we need to say, who to coordinate with, but it also has a lot of other useful information besides coordination of care. You can always jump on there and take a look. Coordination of care, the regs say it should be done at least once a month. Your recert can count as one of those, but there needs to be at least one other time. I feel like every time I'm at a visit, I'm either talking to a parent or a caregiver or another nurse, so I'll pass another therapist, and all of that is care coordination that can go in that bottom box of your daily. If you notice if there's any changes in your plan of care, like you get a new piece of equipment for your kiddo, or mom tells you they're changing their diet, or they have new supplies, allergies, make sure you are communicating that with the team, and in particular the case manager, so everybody's on the same page, because you might get information that nobody else gets. I think that one of the biggest things is just take credit for what you're doing. Like I said, you're almost always talking to a nurse or a therapist, or you're calling your clinical supervisor. Just make sure you document that. The question, yes?
So if I could have you like game trainer, would I just put that in the care coordination that the kiddo receive this game trainer with mobility, and do I need to do anything else with that if I put it in the care coordination box?
I would reach out if it's a big piece of equipment like that. And then you can put, if you spoke with mom about it, if you instructed on how to use it, if you contacted the case manager, but something like that, I would definitely, just send an email or office communication to the case manager, let them know. Yeah.
I have a question. Like, we have a kiddo together, and the coordinator messaged us in the middle and was like, hey, I'm just touching base. So we need to put, spoke with the coordinator and the OT in there?
Yeah, just stick
And
it
what
in
we
your next
chatted
visit
about?
note.
Okay.
Yep. Totally works. And you'll notice that some case managers are sending out an email or an office communication and checking in just to collaborate. I don't think everybody does that, but it's really helpful. So make sure you're responding to those. If you're wondering who, like if a kiddo has speech or if they have BT or what the other therapist names are, you can go under that episodes tab, that great episodes tab, and it'll list all the disciplines involved and all their names, and you can get it done that way too. At research, we need to make sure we're giving a statement, just kind of a one blanket statement about who you coordinated with and what you coordinated about. So it can be something as simple as coordination of care with family, PCP, PT, speech, nursing regarding patient progress, and OT plan of care. So just who you communicated with and what it was about. Because the doctor's going to be getting that research to sign off on. You're going to be communicating with family. In theory, we would like everyone reaching out at that time, sending a quick email, and not just putting that you did it, but actually reaching out, a text, anything that you can do to coordinate, collaborate. Is there any questions on that? Yes.
Can you somehow turn in the daily notes to the OT, like without having to like call the OT?
You may want to give them a heads up that you put it in there, because I don't know if everyone's going to be checking where those coordination of care flows over into the notes box. They may not know to look. So maybe just give them a little heads up that you put something in there.
And then do you guys have a list of all the PT, OT speech? Because I don't know if I ever received that, nor have a copy, but it would be nice to have like a laminated copy like you guys just gave us for who to contact. But if we could get like a whole list of all of OTs and PTs, that would significantly help of contact information.
Yeah. I mean, you should be able to access in Cantime as well if you search it.
See, I don't know some of their names sometimes, but
Yeah.
sometimes it's just nice, like, oh, I'm talking to my patient's father, like, this is her name, I
There
think
you
that's her name. So at least I know it's the lights.
Yep, and the
Yeah.
episode tab will have all their schedules and
That's,
everything.
yeah.
I really tell people to like check it out.
And their contact information.
No, not their phone
Because
number.
I think it's,
It has their, I know texting is probably like the quickest and easiest
well,
way.
it's at least just calling, because I think it would be nice if we could form that as an organization for our PTs and OTs and speech therapists. Because we had that at other companies, and it's really helped. I do some really long driving, quick, pull it up before I go to my next person's house. It's just a really convenient thing to have.
Yeah.
That's some good feedback.
Yeah, cool. Whatever like that.
One more thing about coordination of care is, I know in the past before we switched to Cantime, we used to kind of copy like our assessment, like when we had coordination of care, like the big sheet, we kind of copy the assessment to tell all about the kid and how they're doing. Right now, when we write in that assessment box, that box flows over into the notes box so everyone can see it. So we don't need to copy that down in coordination of care.
Can you repeat that, sorry?
What?
Which one gets copied, the notes?
The assessment box in your coordination of care box gets copied over into the notes section, the notes tab, so everybody has access to that.
So you don't need to copy your assessment summary into your care cord box because it's already going in notes.
So you find different things in both boxes, you should.
Yeah, yeah. Like some people would put that care coordination assessment summary in there so that other therapists could see it, but it's going anyway to notes. So you just need to note and care cord the other stuff.
So you're gonna need that care coordination statement, And then the second half would be your HEP or the update is where we're gonna go next. And Ashley's gonna tell you more about that. Yes, Amy?
For then the HEP, but I guess this will be coming up. When we do put it in there, you guys should see, oh, there's home exercise programs in that care coordination. We know what to do. We know to send that to the parent. We don't, as a family, like, can you send that to the parent? And I have an HEP that I just put in there.
Yeah, because it will get carried over into that box.
So people are seeing, oh, there's an HEP there. We know what to do. I don't have to tell the office.
You can send an email, especially if it's not at Research, if you're just sticking it in a daily note.
Yeah.
I would probably give somebody a heads up that you did that, maybe the case manager if they're looking for it.
Okay.
If they're looking for it, they're gonna find it. If you put it in there, they'll find it in there. And then the families also have access to a parent portal. So they have access, if you tell the family that it's in there, then they can look for that. And if they need access to the parent portal, you can talk to the office.
But if they want a printed copy, I have to make contact with the office about that.
Correct.
Now we're going to talk more about home exercise programs.
Everybody's been segueing that.
I know, it's been such an easy transition here. So home exercise programs, they are currently being located in that care coordination box like we've been talking about. Be on the lookout, we're going to change that to have a more hopefully efficient and streamlined process so we can find them more easily and the parents can locate them more easily within patient portal. So hopefully that email will go out before the end of the year about that process. Oh, no, no, too soon.
It's coming back.
Fuzz backwards now. We're asking for home exercise programs on all of our clients, especially PT and OT. I know with speech it gets a little hazy in that exercise piece because we're not often recommending exercises for our speech kiddos. But if you have a home program that you're working on or that you're educating the family to work on without you there, just document that so that we have something for them to work on. Because we're doing it. We're telling our families what to work on. We just need to make sure we're having it documented and in the chart. We still have our CNA guidelines, like our no ranges or as tolerated. They have to be specific exercises and activities. It can't be like correct W sitting. It has to be play and Taylor sit. We want to have a total number of minutes to complete the home exercise program with the realization like sometimes it's going to take longer, sometimes it's going to be shorter, but just like on an average day, what are they going to get it done in? And then if we're doing donning and doffing of splints or putting kids in positioning equipment, it's that time for transfer and putting braces on and off, not the time spent in them. Any questions? And if we have a reason that a home exercise program is not appropriate for this patient, work with your clinical supervisor. We just want to make sure that we have documentation as to why it's not appropriate and why you maybe don't feel comfortable providing one. You good with home exercise programs?
I have a question.
What's up?
So like with the donning and doffing of splints, you're just like, okay, it probably takes them maybe 15 minutes to do all this. And then you're gonna say, you want them doing the same for 30 minutes though, but that 30 minutes, you just know you can't calculate that, you just have the 15 at the bottom.
Right.
Where you put, or the top, where you put your total.
Like your transfer time, like.
Right, and then, cause then what you're doing is like, patient will perform a home exercise program, like 30 minutes a day, once a day, every 7 days a week, or something like that.
Yep.
And that's just accounting for.
Daily home exercise program for about 30 minutes a day. I always put like approximate time to complete home exercise program, 30, 40, whatever.
You can give a range or not?
No, I'm very specific about that.
That's if they have a nurse or CNA.
That's our regulations for CNA. We found that it's easiest if we just adhere everyone to the same
But if
higher
it's just
standard.
a parent,
It's just a parent, they don't
you
need
have
a
to put
total
all the
time.
specifics, right?
Right. But then if that parent becomes our CNA, then we have to add it in.
So activities, does that count in the home exercise program? Like if I want somebody to use a certain adaptive equipment for feeding, is that?
So if you're like, this is one, like if you're working on feeding in this grasp for this many minutes at a time, yes. If you're like, when feeding, use this. No.
So first, I have to state the minutes.
Mhm. Or like if you want them to do like 10 trials doing it, 10 repetitions by themselves, like if you can qualify it that way, yes.
But if you still want it in there and you're not doing a home exercise program, you want it for education, then still put that piece in there.
Right.
It's not necessarily a home exercise program, but during feeding you want them to use something, then yeah, put that in there for education pieces.
So just the coordination here.
Mhm. Yep.
Good.
I believe so. How many of you guys see patients who are over 18? So you've realized that it's a little bit different than our pediatric line businesses, right? And that's because once a kiddo turns 18, we have to discharge all of their services and admit them under a single line of business in the adult line and do an OASIS admission. An OASIS on paper is like a 24-page comprehensive patient assessment that addresses all body systems. And so that's why we try to have somebody from the office go out and do it. If you're seeing a patient who's over 18 and you notice that on your schedule it says like ST Recert OASIS, please contact the office. And so when you're confirming your schedule on Thursday, actually look at those visit types. And if you see one that says OASIS, just call us, send us an email, and we'll make sure that we get you the Recert and that Liz Cougar or I try to get out to do that OASIS. Unless you've already had a conversation and you are okay doing that OASIS. With our OASIS patients, we have no leeway with our 5-day window. We have to do that OASIS during that day 56 to 60, or we get to discharge and readmit. And then we get to do a discharge OASIS, and then get new orders, and then do a new start of care OASIS. So it's lots of fun for everyone. And then that brings us to types of OASIS. When we do a new start of care for a patient who's over 18, and the regulations with over 18 is we have to discharge by the end of the end of the CERT period. And so now with our pediatric lines of business being all different CERT periods, we have to coordinate and collaborate with whatever CERT period ends first. So start of care, transfer, if they go to the hospital, we have to do a transfer OASIS. When they come home from the hospital, we get to do a resumption OASIS, and then recertification and discharge. So if you see any of these on your schedule and you were not prepared to do them, contact the office. One of the things that this single adult line of business is, one of the complications we're experiencing is that we don't have the ability to do true recertifications. So when you go and do your recert visit for patients, you're actually being assigned an eval. And so then your goals and interventions don't flow into the upcoming CERT period. So if you notice this is happening, you have to create that care plan change order within your eval to edit any goals and interventions. And then let your supervisor know, and we will create a duplicate care plan change order once a new CERT period begins, and that's how we get everything into the plan of care and into your daily notes. If you have any questions or frustrations with this, please reach out directly to your supervisor and we can help you. We're actively working with CanTime to find a more efficient process. Forms. With the OASIS, since everything's under one line of business, the person doing the OASIS needs to complete the home safety and hospitalization risk assessment forms. Not with every individual eval. The FLAC, the behavioral pain assessment, is still appropriate if the patient's nonverbal and unable to rate their own pain. With each visit note, we want to make sure that you're documenting towards at least one goal. So you go into the goals tab, and then it looks more like our PD notes, the activities that you worked on towards a goal and the progress towards a specific goal. And now we are able to discharge a single discipline within the adult line of business. So we just need you to communicate with the office and we'll get that assigned for you so that you can discharge just your discipline rather than the complete agency OASIS discharge. The form is a little bit different, so it's in your handouts with some education on what goes where. And there are also home exercise program guidelines in there. Any questions? Okay.
This is the most fun part of the in-service here. Please raise your hand if you're a fraudster so we can put you on the secret list to watch you guys closely. No one? Okay, we can go to the next slide. I know this seems super silly, and it is, but we've definitely had issues with fraud in the past, so we want to educate everyone towards this and to make sure you guys all remain compliant. So what is fraud? Charting you provided services that you didn't provide, of course. Charting the patient was under your care when he or she was not. So another obvious one, charting a visit that you didn't actually complete. MGA Home Healthcare has a zero tolerance policy and employees will be terminated for violating that policy and doing anything that's fraudulent. If you ever have any questions or concerns or anything borderline, please contact us and we can help you through that and let you know, or whatever it is, for sure, because we're definitely open to helping you if you're not sure on some of these to see. We also want to let you guys know Can Time does track everything. So everything you do in the system from when you open that assessment, write in it, create it, sign it, parent sign it, everything is tracked in an audit log in Can Time, so you really can't hide. And I know you guys don't have the ability to see that part of it, but we want to make sure you're aware so nothing ever comes up or any issues or you're charting for a visit 4 weeks later, which you probably wouldn't be able to remember. I can't remember things from yesterday, so definitely just keep that in mind and keep that open and let us know if you have any questions. But that's basically it. Now next, on to the next not as fun part.
Chelsea's gonna do the
Oh,
What are we taking my bacon?
Did you say something else?
No. Okay, missing signatures on visit notes. If you guys miss a signature or it doesn't save for whatever reason, please email Tyler, Kelly, and your clinical supervisor, the kiddo, and then the date. Kelly will call, confirm the signature with the family, and then we'll submit that note to QA. Email for scheduling after evaluations. So for some reason, when you guys do a valid patient, it doesn't show up on our list to schedule those out. So if you guys can email the scheduling team on the back of your little contact cards, we'll get the evaluation scheduled for you guys. Using appropriate abbreviations. So if you don't make up your own abbreviations. If you can't, like, if you don't know for sure if it's appropriate, then just spell it out. A lot of times we see like capital P, capital T for patient instead of physical therapy. So yeah, just spell it out if you're unsure of the abbreviation. Be sure to check your email and your office communication daily, especially with your corrections coming through your office communication. We send lots of important information, so please check those. The best news is there's no restrictions now with the number of therapies a kiddo can have when there's CNA in the home, so that should make scheduling a lot easier for you guys with no daily cap. Assessing pain at every visit. NA is not acceptable, so please either do it on the FLAC or the Wong Baker, and don't put NA. Language translation service. We do have the service, so if you have a kiddo and family that does not speak English, just let us know and we can get you that information. And then when you do use it, please just send an office communication to myself and your clinical supervisor of who the patient was and then the date. Cal and those guys like to just track when we're using it, so if you can send those unfortunately each visit. And then OneDrive, I'm gonna actually.
Sorry, also too, Chelsea, I mean, if you have the consistency of that, let's say you use it a couple times a week, just send the frequency. You don't have to do it every day. So if you're using it for a patient where you see one time a week or what have you, just send it over
And then Tyler's actually gonna talk about OneDrive, he's a little bit more knowledgeable about that
Oh.
than I am.
Yeah, somewhat. It's just kind of our iCloud server for you to save all your documents on your tablet. Word should be working now on all of your tablets. If it's not, let me know. It takes your email credentials though to log into both Word, and if OneDrive needs a login, it may prompt you just use your email credentials again. You'll have to do that sweet phone code as well, putting in the 6 digits. But yeah, it's basically a place if you needed to access OneDrive but didn't have your tablet, you would be able to kind of go into office.com on any device, use your email credentials and access that document that you may need for any of your kids. So it's just a way for you to be more mobile with your documentation. Any questions on that?
I have a question regarding signatures.
Yeah.
So when we're doing CNA supervisory, you know,
Yeah.
a little form, I have them sign the visit form, but not the CNA form.
And that's
Cool.
fine.
Yeah.
So you just, I can still put NA and see this.
You got it. Yep. Yep. And that's a good question. Yeah, what you got?
So on the pain, I always put none, because I hardly ever get a kid that's in significant pain. Is that okay?
You can put 0, I put 0 out of 10 flack in that little box.
Okay.
Zero,
I put
zero.
sometimes and it goes through.
What?
I put none and it goes through.
Yeah, I put none and it goes through, but is that okay?
If you're using the one Baker in the assessment, yeah, if you're on the daily note. You check, I think you might get sent back around the kids.
Yeah, I put none and it never gets sent back, so is that still okay, or do I, just somebody tell me
I would
it's
just
not?
do 0, just like, because
Yeah.
the scale.
What?
Yeah.
I would just change none to 0.
Okay, just
Yeah,
put a
just so that
zero?
it's a number, because the scale is actually numbered 0 to 10.
Okay.
So if you just put 0,
What scale you use.
Okay,
That's
You
what
don't
they
have
asked.
to fill out the form, but use a scale.
okay. So just like 0 flag?
0 flat, 0 long Baker, whatever you want to.
Okay.
So you don't have to actually fill out the flag then?
Not
Only
even
if
registered
there's
flag?
pain.
Okay.
This is a
If
daily
there
bill,
is
right?
pain, it's a good idea to do it.
Yeah.
But like if it's 0, so like most of the times you go, it's 0, right? So then 0 flag, but if there is pain or it's something